The LA Times dug into hundreds of documents that detail allegations against Boy Scout personnel and volunteers. The files appear to show a pattern of protecting the accused and sweeping it under the rug. You went through 1,600 confidential files dating back from 1970 to 1991. How many cases of abuse are we talking about here?
Thousands, really. We looked at 1,600 cases, but many of those cases involved several victims. So as many as 2,000, even 3,000 victims are likely named in these files.
And what are the accusations?
Well, a lot of them are rather explicit and detailed. Many of the files contain handwritten accounts by the young 10-year-old boys who were sexually abused. The Boy Scouts were attempting to put together a complete file so that they could expel these men from scouting. So in the process, they gathered rather explicit accounts of the abuse that had happened.
And you found, by what I was reading here, 500 cases in which the information came from the boys, parents, staff members, or perhaps even anonymous tips. You say police were not told in 400 of them. How did you verify that information?
Well, in 80% of the cases, we found no indication that the authorities had been contacted. In more than 100 cases, we found explicit references to the fact, to efforts to hide the abuse, sometimes even from the parents of the victims. What we did was we took several of these cases, many of these cases, and ran them through public record searches and interviewed people who had been involved in the case. What's clear is that in many of these cases, the Boy Scouts, instead of informing authorities, decided to keep this information to themselves.
And were there any convictions here in what you found?
One of the things we saw repeatedly was men whose sexual abuse was covered up by the Boy Scouts of America went on later to be accused of different crimes involving sexual abuse of boys. And so, yes, there are sometimes convictions that happen subsequent to these cover-ups.
And Jason, the Scouts did send us a statement, so I want to put this up for everybody. It says in part here, in the more than 100 years that the BSA has served youth, society has learned about this important issue. The BSA continuously enhanced its multi-tiered policies and procedures, which now include background checks, comprehensive training programs, and safety policies.
There's no doubt that the Boy Scouts of America has implemented a number of policies over the years that are intended to protect kids from sexual abuse. The question that we are not able to answer, then I don't think anybody is able to answer, is, are those policies working?